Rise in Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. It's Thursday, but you know what that is? That's my Friday, because guess what? I'm taking tomorrow off, baby. Yeah, it's going to be nice. I worked on Monday. While you were sitting at home watching me on Memorial Day, I was here with my lovely wife giving you a nice little show. But you know what? My dad called and he said, you know what, Austin? I'm going trout fishing with my nephew, his grandson, on Friday, and I'd like you to come. And I said, you know what? I'm my own boss here. I'm going. So tomorrow, I'm going to go fishing. I can't wait. My favorite kind of fishing, trout fishing. You ever had a trout? Oh, it's awesome. And just this week, my wife and I happened to get one of those little smokers. It's like an electric smoker that you can plug in, and it's a nice size. And, you know, one of my favorite foods is smoked trout. So can't wait. It's going to be nice. There will be no show tomorrow and no replay because I don't even want to do that. I'm out of work. Too bad. Don't be sad. Sometimes I get days off and I like to be lazy. So it'll be nice. Glad to have you here on the show this morning. It's so much fun whenever I check out the live stream chat and I see a bunch of new names over there like Hot Water 84 and Jared Pierce and Sean Burridge, and I think Corey C even is a little bit of a newbie here. Nice to see you all, and welcome to all the new people. Grateful to have you on the Wake Up America Show Cantina crew with us. And if you're joining us today, you know what to do. Hit that like button. Help us to spread the message of freedom, which is what we're all about today. Cries of Treason and Bitchmobile joining us over on Rumble. Good morning, Vietnam. Good to see you, brothers and sisters. My brothers and sisters in Christ. Glad to have you here. Barney Styles is joining us today. Hey, Barney, I saw you got something cool from the AP for Liberty shop yesterday. You the man. We got that order already processed for you, and we'll get you your item very soon. All right, so we've got, for a goodbye show for my three-day weekend, I have to say, I've got an unbelievably awesome show for you today. Guest-wise, we are absolutely top-notch. At 7:30 a.m. today, we're going to speak to the ambassador to the Vatican from the United States. Francis Rooney is going to be joining us today. Ambassador Francis Rooney represented Florida's 19th congressional district in the U.S. Congress from 2017 to 2021. And his people reached out to me today because he wanted to get on the show today to talk a little bit about inflation and the debt ceiling deal and why we need more bipartisanship. I thought that was pretty brave of him to want to come on the Wake Up America show to argue in favor of bipartisanism when I'm out there saying I think we just need to have them fight it out in a gladiatorial arena. That should be exciting. So we'll talk to Francis Rooney, Ambassador Rooney, this morning at 7:30. Ambassador to the Vatican. That's interesting, right? And of course, the number one top guest, Camellia Peterson, joins us today at 8 a.m. She texted me just minutes ago and was like, wait, are you taking today off or tomorrow off? Because if you're taking today off, I'm going back to bed. Get out of bed, you sleepyhead. Camellia Peterson will be joining us at 8 o'clock today to talk about milk toast McEnany. Yeah, Donald Trump. It was just hilarious because just a few days ago, Donald Trump's people, I saw some black guy in Timcast who was like, DeSantis should be loyal to Trump because Trump was loyal. Trump is loyal to those who are loyal to him. And people are all on Trump's social media out there saying, DeSantis is disloyal. He's disloyal to Trump. Trump is so loyal. And everyone stabs him in the back. And then Kayleigh McEnany cited a poll, and Donald Trump immediately threw her under the bus for citing a poll. And apparently, I thought that she misstated the poll. No, she actually stated a poll correctly about Trump's lead over DeSantis. And immediately he threw her under the bus and was like, she's a tool of the deep state. The globalists in the deep state can have her. What? Just hilarious, though, because it was literally the whole, Trump was loyal to those who are loyal to him. Well, you just got rid of your big talking point there. You blew that one up. So, and the polls are starting to close and tighten. So let's not count anybody out yet in the Republican primary. On the Democratic side of things, I'm actually excited to play for you this video from James Vanderbeek. What? James Vanderbeek, of, what was it, Gilmore Girls, or was one of those stupid chick shows from the 90s that I didn't watch because I'm straight, even though it's gay month, so everything is gay for 30 days. I know how you feel.
God!
What do you mean, no? What are you,
God,
homophobic?
Please, no!
Oh, well, maybe before we kick off the discussion of what are you proud of during Pride Month, I should offer a little bit of disclaimer for those who are tuning in right now who are pro-gay rights. I just want to say that I am not homophobic, and but that I just enjoy humor at everyone's expense, right? To me, there are no sacred cows. So whether you are a conservative Catholic Ambassador Francis Rooney, or whether you are a super left wing, how gay can it get? I mean, like, I guess it can get pretty gay, but I mean, unless you're super left wing gay, and even like the libertarians, nothing is off the table for me in terms of poking fun, right? But I do support gay rights like gay marriage and things like that. I have a gay brother, a gay Mexican sister, lots of gay friends, and I even have a gay dog. But to me, any group of people with a political agenda deserve to be questioned and even mocked when it calls for it. Oh, here comes the Twitch ban. So let's have some fun and not take everything too seriously, okay? Because the Wake Up America show is the enemy of Puritans and woke scolds alike. Hold on to your butts, or at least grab some lubrication to help remove the sticks from them, and let's go. Pride Month. What are you proud of? My ideological journey when it comes to LGBT has been an interesting one. It was when I was 14, 15 years old that my brother came out of the closet to me, and it was at that time that I was starting to question my beliefs in a higher power, like the point of organized religion. I had been raised Southern Baptist for most of my life, and my mother had just passed away after suffering from ovarian cancer. So you start to ask the big questions when you're a young man, like whence cometh evil, as Epicurus might have asked. Whence cometh evil? The problem of evil. You know, if God is all good, why does He allow evil to exist in this world? Why does He allow young children to have, terrible diseases and all of these things? You ask these questions. You know, where does evil come from? And after a while, you start to realize you're asking what is known today as the Epicurean riddle, the riddle of Epicurus, the question of where does evil come from? And it was around the time that I was 18, 19 years old that I walked away from the church and never returned. And part of it had to do with sort of looking at the way that the religious community treated homosexuality because of the people in my life that I knew that were homosexuals that I loved, and my love for my family and my friends outweighed my desire to fit in, right? Growing up in a middle Midwestern community, if you want to fit in, you have to sort of jump on board with the, anti-homosexual, conservative, sort of NPC crowd, if you will. And NPCs, when I say NPCs can be right wing, and there's a lot of Donald Trump MAGA NPCs, right? Or you can be left wing. There's a lot of left wing LGBTQIA purple haired NPCs as well, right? And you know what? There's even some people that I would consider to be libertarian NPCs. These are people who are like the cult of the non aggression principle, the NAP cult, right? And who do not tolerate dissent, who cannot listen to outside anything that people who are always like, you're not a real libertarian crowd, right? That's kind of like what I think of as libertarian NPCs. I've always considered myself to be a free thinker, as someone who is not wed to any orthodoxy. Even someone who considers myself to be broadly libertarian, small L libertarian, I always thought reserved for myself the right to think for myself. And boy, that it really is anathema to being a member of a political party or any political group at all, because as soon as you get into any group, whatever it may be, whether it's a church or a political party or a nonprofit institution or what have you, groupthink is endemic to these institutions in order for them to be of like mind to do whatever mission it is, right? Saving souls for Jesus, right? Converting your kids to homosexuality, right? On the left or right, wherever you come from on these things. So over the years, I kind of morphed from being a young, I guess you might say, soft classical liberal. Like I never endorsed anti-capitalism or anti-freedom things that like the left is known for today. But I would say broadly socially tolerant is what I would call myself now. At the time, when I was younger, maybe considered to be more socially liberal, perhaps. And as I grew older and I matured, I started to realize things like, when it comes to abortion and things like that, that life, the purpose of life is to procreate and to protect life. And I believe in the value and the intrinsic value of life, right? Which a lot of people think, oh, well, that makes you a right winger, right? But then the right wingers are like, well, the Bible says, if you are lukewarm, I will spit you out. Well, the Bible does say that. So they spit me out because I say, well, because I don't, I think that gay people should be able to get married as well. Then they spit me out on the right. So then when I come over to, I think, okay, well, maybe I should hang out over here with the liberals. But then the liberals are like, you must be communist and you must endorse having only one brand of deodorant and one car company. And I'm like, okay, well, I can't get on with that communist horse crap. So they go, well, you are lukewarm and I will spit you out, because everybody is all about orthodoxy. And this is how we've gotten to be in an idiocracy, because no one can think for themselves, right? A lot of people, they go and they turn on talk show hosts, and this is in an ironic twist of fate, in order to get their opinion on things. How do I feel about things? Well, I need to go listen to Austin Peterson or Gavin McInnes or whoever is Kyle Kalinske on the left, or I need to go wherever one of my Catholic podcaster guys, stuff like that. In order for me to develop an opinion, I must hear from them and things like that. And that's natural. That's human. We all sort of fall into these traps of thinking in order for us to determine what it is that we believe. It's difficult for us to find pure fonts of knowledge. A lot of people say, well, just get them from books, but books can be just as biased by people. They are written by people after all. So it's been fascinating to see, especially my brother's ideological journey. And my brother, I guess, is here this morning. Justin, nice to see you. Happy Gay Month. It's been interesting to see his ideological journey, where I think he really is the example of like the Overton window moving. Whereas Justin's views on things, he was always what I would consider to be a soft Democrat, right? Right, where I was a little bit really that centrist libertarian type, right? Would that maybe lean right a little bit more, and especially more in recent years. But Justin, my brother, never, being a gay man and being, someone, I think he voted probably for Hillary Clinton back in the day. Well, probably Barack Obama too. I never did that. But the left has moved so far towards socialism because of orthodoxy, because LGBTQIA has adopted an orthodoxy, which we might call critical theory, right? Which is the critical race theory that they're trying to embed in our schools. And this is all an outcropping of the philosophy of postmodernism, right? The idea that there is no objective truth or objective reality or morality, in a sense. And so Justin, who has not adopted critical theory, right, and someone who is a soft Democrat, right, like leans left, has now moved in. He hasn't moved, but the spectrum has been pushed. The Overton window has slid further to the left, to where now a lot of LGBTQIA people, if they were to hear the things that my brother says right now, which is just traditional classical liberalism, things about free speech, they now think that he's some right-wing radical. He's in the box with the alt-right. And so to me, I think that what we really are, what the problem of today, I really despise purity, and I despise purity tests. And I think that I used to be someone who was very much in the throes of doctrinaire thinking, to an extent, because I'll admit that I probably had a lot of cultist tendencies myself. Well, I know I did when I was young, because religion sort of indoctrinates you into that style of thinking. But then I abandoned religion and I adopted a new sort of occultist style of thinking, and a lot of people do this, right? And that was in my sort of, I won't say worship of a politician, because I wouldn't say I worshipped Ron Paul, but I would say I felt like to an extent that I was in a occultist style of behavior and thinking. And certainly that still exists today. If you offer any criticism of that man, because there is a cult, and a lot of politicians have that cult of personality, then they will come for you, right? It's like when it's like MAGA Trumpers, same thing. You criticize Donald Trump online. I mean, try it, see what happens to you. I mean, say anything unkind about Donald Trump, and they will come for you, right? The bots, the NPCs, the cultists, they cannot think for themselves. They have a doctrine. They have the one true faith, if you will. And certainly the LGBTQIA community has moved towards this. And in terms of, those who can make you believe absurdities can make you commit, what's the word from Voltaire? Can make you commit atrocities. I think that was the Voltaire quote. And so what atrocities, what absurdities has the left adopted that are making them commit what atrocities? Well, the absurdities is that, you cut someone's testicles off, that makes them a woman. It's not to say that you shouldn't respect people's right to live their life freely as they wish. I absolutely do. But both of my dogs have been neutered, and neither one of them are girls. They're both still boy dogs. And so I can't accept an absurdity because of course I think that the atrocity is that the atrocity that's being committed by the LGBTQIA community is to endorse the mutilation of children. Not to say that adults shouldn't be able to do as they please, because I absolutely believe they should, but I reject the new wave of the LGBTQIA plus whatever movement. What does the plus stand for, by the way? And their desire to commit atrocities, which is what they stand for today. That's my take on it, and I would love to hear your thoughts. You can send us a text today at 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. One of our listeners, Nelson65, over on Rumble, says that many of us just call ourselves LGB and we keep off the rest. Boy, that's interesting. And he also said being a conservative gay sucks, and not in a good way. Very funny. I do find it interesting to discuss the whole conservative gay question, right? Those who are gay, those who are conservatives, because when you think about conservatism, you don't think homosexuality. But then, of course, there are lots of people who I've known for years that consider themselves to be hardcore conservatives. Some of them, many of them neocons, for example. And of course, I've met lots of gay libertarians. That makes a little more sense. But gay conservatism would seem to be an oxymoron, and certainly social conservatives, Nelson, they would not accept you. You are lukewarm, and they will spit you out. Right? They reject the idea that a homosexual can be conservative. That mostly dwells in like what we would call the Groyper community. If you're not familiar with what that term is, look it up or don't look it up if you don't want to have a bad day. But But I would love to hear your thoughts on this. I see you guys are already having a vigorous discussion over at the YouTube channel. Make sure while you're typing all those awesome comments that you also click like on the program and share it with your friends. Make sure you click that notification bell icon so that you can know whenever we go live. We'd love to hear from our listeners. Again, you can text the show at 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. Somebody texted me a picture of an eagle that says, I support LGBT, large, giant, big titties. Oh, gosh. Very nice. Glad to have you here on the show. I'm really excited to speak to Ambassador Francis Rooney here in about 10 minutes. We're going to talk to him about the debt ceiling deal, which passed this morning out of Congress. But before I go get our ambassador, I did want to talk to you about this. One of my favorite stories, speaking of being homophobic, one of my favorite stories is this story about the homophobic dog. Do you remember this? You guys probably have already forgotten this meme. But this is a story that just made me laugh so hard back in the day about a dog that was being posted around. The dog that's the new face of online homophobia. And I'm gonna go ahead and pull up the Snopes article for you because it like debunked it because it made it look as if it was a real article that Taylor Lorenz from the Washington Post had published. And it turns out it was fake. But it was so the funny thing about satire nowadays in the bizarre world of 2023 is that it seems as if it's all it's all satire seems real. You can't tell the difference because the world is so absurd. But I'm laughing just because the homophobic dog was one of my favorite memes out back in the day because even if you're not homophobic or even if you are homophobic or not homophobic, I just happen to think it's still hilarious. Hold on, where's the I googled it and didn't find anything. Did you make that up? That somebody's asking me. Okay, hold on one second. Wait, I gotta find the gay dog here. Are they a hive mind? I think only one way. Da da da. Where's my dang homophobic dog pic? Because somebody had posted the homophobic dog this morning with like a gay rainbow flag underneath it. Just go to my freaking thing. What is the freaking deal here? Hold on, I'm gonna blow this up for a second. There we go. All right. So, yeah, so the homophobic dog. Here we go. All right. So, happy gay month, right? With the little dog right there and he's got the rainbow flag under there. And I just shared this one of him. Let's hope it's just a phase. Yes. And also, real quick, I do have to make the point I know other people have made before that all these corporations today that are going to be changing their corporate logos to pride logos. Do yourselves a favor, check their accounts in the Middle East and see if, because here's the thing, you're not brave if you support gay rights in the United States. I mean, no offense, but you're just not. Okay, you're brave if you support gay rights in the Middle East. You're gay if you support you're gay if you support gay rights. Freudian slip. You're brave if you support gay rights where it's dangerous to support gay rights. Where places like Russia, for example, where if you're in the band Pussy Riot, well, you could get arrested and put in jail, right, for protesting Vladimir Putin, right? So June is far too gay, says Justin. June is busting out all over after all. But I just really love the homophobic dog because even though I'm not homophobic, I just find things like homophobia hilarious. I find jokes about homophobia to be funny. Yes, I do. I even laugh at jokes at everybody's expense. Black, white, Irish, it doesn't matter. Homophobic dog, Mexican, LGBTQIA, right? Conservative Catholic, right? I like the jokes about the little boys in the priests and stuff like that. I laugh at all of it. You know why? Because I'm free. Because a lot of people today are prisoners in their own minds. But me, baby, I am free. All right, I'm going to go to a commercial break to go get Ambassador Francis Rooney to talk about the debt ceiling deal. Before I go, enjoy this song. I'll be back in a minute.
Everyone has AIDS. AIDS, AIDS, AIDS. AIDS, 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 AIDS. Everyone has AIDS. And so this is the end of our story. And everyone is dead from AIDS. It took from me my best friend, my only true pal, my only bright star. He died of AIDS. Well, I'm gonna march on Washington, lead the fight and charge the brigades. There's a hero inside of all of us. I'll make them see everyone has AIDS. My father, AIDS. My sister, AIDS. My uncle and my cousin and her best friend, AIDS, AIDS. The gays and the straights and the whites and the spades. Everyone has AIDS. My grandma and my dog go blue. AIDS, AIDS, AIDS. The Pope has got it and so do you. AIDS, 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 AIDS. Come on everybody, we got quilting to do. AIDS, AIDS, We're gonna break down these barricades. Everyone has AIDS, 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 AIDS,
AIDS. We'll be back.
I like shooting things, but whenever I can't shoot something, I like to cut things. My life isn't all about shooting and stabbing and cutting, though. Sometimes I have to do actual work, but when I work, I still like to have fun. And there's nothing less fun than trying to cut with a crappy knife. Thankfully, from the ancient sect of Christian knights, who also loved cutting and stabbing, comes a new implement that has received my personal blessing, the Templar knife. Like the ancient sword of Excalibur, you don't choose a Templar knife, it chooses you. You just decide what kind you want on the website first, however, and then order it online, and then it chooses you. The Templar knife comes in a variety of shapes. As a man of culture and taste, I have decided I will never use a terrible knife again. And thanks to the inspiration provided by this excellent product, I have decided to launch a new crusade against anyone using less than superior knives. Join me, brothers and sisters, by visiting uppercuttactical.com/pages/Templar-knives. That's a lot of slashes. For that, you'll need a Templar knife. For 10% off, use code AP for Liberty and join me in a quest for glory, for liberty, for Christendom, for the Templar knife. Get yours today.
Fire. Hello, this is Barack Obama, and let me tell you why Austin Peterson stinks, and you should never pay attention to anything that he has to say. First of all, he's a libertarian, and we all know libertarians are idiots. They don't realize how important government is to everything that we do. I recently became aware that Austin has opened up a libertarian shop at apeforlibertyshop.com. Now, I'm asking you as a personal favor to me that you never ever visit apeforlibertyshop.com. With all of the great Liberty merchandise there, the last thing that we need to do is to get people spreading this message around the country, because then they might start thinking that they don't need government. And that's the last thing that good Democrats like us want. So if you love democracy, like me, and hate freedom, then don't visit AP for Liberty Shop. Like I said, whatever you do, do not visit aporlibertyshop.com. I'm Barack Obama, and I approve this message.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move, so I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
I would remind you that extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice.
It is better to settle these matters in the courts than on the streets, and new laws are needed at every level. But law alone cannot make men see right.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
American conservatism is distinct, like America is distinct from the United Kingdom. American conservatism's roots comes out of the Wild West, out of pioneerism. The difference between American conservatives and European conservatives is that Americans are cowboys. We are that God, guns, gold, and girls. It's wild here, and we should stay that way. We shouldn't allow a European version of conservatism to come and infect us here. We like it wide open spaces here, you know, deep in the heart of Texas and all that.
Hey there, it's your favorite Vice President Joe Biden. I wanted to talk to you today about the Wake Up America show, the best source for all your political news and commentary. But before I get started, let me just make sure I have all my notes in order. Okay, where was I? All right, the Wake Up America show. It's a great way to stay informed and make your voice heard. Boy, what was I saying again? Oh, right. The Wake Up America show. It's important that we all stay engaged and knowledgeable about what's going on in our country and, the thing. But hold on, where was I going with all this? Oh, yeah. The Wake Up America show. It's a fantastic resource. And if you really want to make a difference, man, you can sign up to be a monthly donor at wakeupAmericaShow.com/support. Now, where was I? Oh, that's right, the Wake Up America show. So if you want to stay woke and support a great cause, head on over to wakeupamericashow.com/support and sign up to be a monthly donor today. And if you're feeling generous, you can even give a donation in my name. Thanks for listening, and keep on keeping on, America. Come on, man.
Hello, I'm George. Thank you for watching the Wake Up America show with my dad. Today, I'd like to share with you 3 reasons why you should visit Dad's online store at apforlibertyshop.com. Number 1, you can get exclusive freedom-loving merch designed by AP himself, or me mum, Steffi. Liberty Laura has made some designs as well, and blimey, they are great! Number 2, most of these products are so wicked that they aren't even allowed to be advertised on Facebook or Instagram. Modern machine guns and a proper keychain. Plus, our Grover Cleveland t-shirt is so spicy apparently that leftists on Facebook specifically banned it from appearing on the website. Number 3, you're supporting liberty lovers just like you. Spend your money where you earn it, and you help me Pops build a community that supports what you believe. Bloody hell, this commercial is running too long. Gotta run. Bye now. Don't forget to visit apforlibertyshop.com. That's apforlibertyshop.com.
Good morning. Rise in freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupamericashow.com. Thanks so much for tuning in. It's Thursday, the 1st of June. Grateful to have you here. Make sure you click that like button and subscribe to the channel. If you like the opinions that you've been hearing this morning, help us to spread the message of economic freedom and personal liberty. That's what we're all about here, after all. My next guest is a very special guest. His very first time on the program today. He's Ambassador Francis Rooney. He represented Florida's 19th Congressional District in the U.S. from 2017 to 2021. He also served as the U.S. Ambassador to the Holy See from 2005 to 2008. He was appointed by President George W. Bush. He also wrote a book about diplomacy and the U.S. Holy See relationship titled The Global Vatican. He says that more bipartisanship is needed to end the debt crisis in the United States, and he's joining us now. Good morning, Ambassador. Thank you very much for your time today. We're grateful to have you.
Thank you for having me on.
Sure. Would you give us maybe perhaps your broad-based perspective of how the debt ceiling deal went down?
Well, everybody knows we are not going to default on our debt. It was a game of brinksmanship and political posturing, which I think probably worked out okay given the circumstances. We got some spending cuts theoretically. We'll see if they stay, if they really mature. You know, they have a habit of not doing what they say there in the Congress. Unfortunately, the work requirement will actually cost money, not save money, because of the exclusions they put in there, which I think is kind of an unfortunate game that was played. At least cutting the IRS back to size will probably help.
So when you say cutting the IRS back to size help, you see that probably as a net positive that the swarms of officers that the Biden administration wants to send hither to eat out our substance perhaps was a bridge too far.
Yeah, exactly. That this might keep them from having the resources to just attack Americans across the board.
Well, see, that's an interesting point of view there, Ambassador, because some people think that, in order for us to have an efficient government, that it needs to be fully funded and it needs to be fully outfitted, and there need to be plenty of officers at the IRS to be able to audit absolutely everyone under the sun. But some people, like myself and others, eschew to the view that perhaps, if the government isn't as efficient as they possibly can be, that we might be lucky. Or was it an old Will Rogers quote? He says that maybe we're lucky we don't get all the government we pay for.
Yeah. Well, I'm still remembering back some of the IRS agents that were siding with Hillary Clinton and attacking private foundations just a few years ago. And now with this recent business about the politicization of the FBI, I'm kind of a little nervous about the power of government. Always have been, but I'm a lot more nervous right now. And every time you pick up the page, there's some new government thing, whether it's not using gas stoves, not eating meat. I mean, they're trying to totally rearrange our individual rights and liberties.
If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, good morning. Thank you for joining us. I'm speaking to Ambassador Francis Rooney. He was appointed ambassador to the Holy See under the George W. Bush administration. He's also a former Florida congressman, joining us now to talk about the debt ceiling deal that passed out of the Congress, I believe, late last night or early this morning. So we have a deal, but I think what it laid bare really is the differences in the ideologies between the Republican Party and the Democrats, but where you'll find sort of this strange horseshoe theory, if you will, where you'll see radical Republicans like Lauren Boebert, for example, or Chip Roy of Texas saying that no Republican should vote for this deal, and then across the aisle you'll see Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez saying, "Hey, I agree with Chip Roy of Texas." To what do you attribute that?
Well, they say politics makes strange bedfellows. We have had a lot of this. Some seemingly asymmetrical alliance between the radical left and the Freedom Caucus on several things, where the radical left doesn't want any border. Freedom Caucus wants a very strong border. Sometimes they unite on not wanting whatever's being proposed. The environment. I mean, when I introduced a carbon tax bill to try to get rid of coal, it was the radical left that was as much of an opponent as the right, because they said it doesn't go far enough. Yeah. You got to take whatever steps you could take, right? I mean,
Ambassador, what are your thoughts on Speaker Kevin McCarthy?
Well, I think he comes out of this a winner. He got it together, held it together. There's going to be a few pot shots taken as we're taking here just in the paper this morning. But at the end of the day, he got the votes. He got a lot of Republican votes, probably got some pretty conservative votes. And that's not a bad thing. It's just unfortunate that the whole program is such a charade that's not going to do any good for anybody.
Well, what do you mean? Can you expand on that?
Well, they have a habit of putting things in place, cuts, and then not keeping them there. Like what happened with the Simpson Bowls and the sequester. All that went away. When I was in Congress, nobody liked the sequester because they all want to spend more money. We wanted to spend it on defense, our guys, $100 billion increase, and the liberals wanted to spend it on welfare. So they united to get rid of the sequester, and look what's happened since then.
Isn't one of the big problems, though, Ambassador, that we don't really have regular order in Congress and that we pass continuing resolutions instead of actual regular spending bills?
It's a huge problem. And if the public realized what all that was, I mean, anybody that owns a business knows you have to operate, pay your bills, collect your receipts, et cetera, and this government doesn't do that.
If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, you're listening to Ambassador Francis Rooney, who's joining us right now. He's a former Florida congressman as well as a former ambassador to the Holy See appointed by George W. Bush. We're talking a bit this morning about the debt ceiling deal that passed out of Congress. You can send us a text if you have a question for the ambassador at 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. Ambassador, one of the big problems that we face when it comes to our debt crisis is not the actual debt itself, the 32 trillion, what have you, but it's the unfunded liabilities that most people don't talk about, which some people estimate to be in the range of $250 trillion. Congressman, forgive me for saying, I don't think that's possible to be paid back. Do you?
No. And it's going to be bad enough just to control the current interest payments on the debt in an era of higher inflation and rates. And I just am very pessimistic about the inability to cut spending. Nobody seems to want to do it. So the only answer is raise taxes.
Congressman, one of the things that, to me, I come from the Liberty wing of the Republican Party, so I caucus with the Rand Pauls and the Thomas Masseys and others who would like to see much more severe, drastic spending cuts being made. And I still sort of identify as sort of a Tea Party Republican, if you will. But the problem with the Republican Party when it comes to the issue of spending is that when we have a Democratic president, they're all fiscal conservatives. But under the Trump administration and during the Trump years, they were more than happy to raise the debt ceiling without any deals or any problems. As a matter of fact, it's the kind of thing that makes me think we'd be better off with a Democratic president in a Republican-controlled House. I know that you think we need more bipartisanship, but quite frankly, I see better results of limited government when they're all at each other's throats. What do you say?
Well, it's kind of like your quote from Will Rogers. Our guys can't cut spending either. The first 2 years I was there, when we had all three branches of government, and like you say, what Trump did was terrible. We spent as much per day as the Obama administration did. I voted against all that garbage. $500 million to bail out the mine workers' pension plan, $400 billion to bail out Puerto Rico. I mean, just ridiculous stuff that should never happen.
On the issues of entitlements and spending, we're in an interesting situation where the front runner for the Republican Party, the nomination from the GOP, is running to the left of Ron DeSantis in regards to entitlement spending. I think I remember Trump criticizing Mike Pence for statements about making cuts to Social Security and Medicaid. Do you find it interesting that the leading candidate for the Republican Party is running quite obnoxiously to the left of the other party candidates in regards to Social Security and entitlement spending?
Well, I find it unfortunate, but it's an outgrowth of this whole conversion of the Republican Party, not your wing and my wing, to populism. Because populists don't want to cut spending. They like money, whether they're Democrat or Republican. They used to be Democrat, now they're Republican, but they do the same thing.
It's fascinating to see the Trump wing of the party sort of tarring and the Bush wing of the party, of the old establishment of the Republican Party, as if Jeb Bush supporting Ron DeSantis is some kind of a problem because there's something wrong with Jeb Bush. Because when I looked at Jeb Bush's record as governor of Florida, he was one of the most conservative, and dare I say, he even once famously said that he had libertarian blood in his veins. When I looked at his record of cutting spending as governor of Florida and cutting government, he had a fantastic record. He probably would have been a good president as well. But when you say populists don't care about spending, I mean, populism really is anti-elitism, right? They see your wing of the party as elitists, and they see people like myself and others as sort of tools and pawns of the globalist elite. Right. But if anything, you'll see them quite frequently railing against socialism. But I mean, they're the ones who are trying to protect the entitlement spending and Social Security, and they come after libertarians like ourselves for wanting to cut spending and things like that. There's a very anti-conservative wing in the Republican Party now, isn't there?
There is. And you even have certain senators, like one from Florida, talking about greedy corporations. I talked to him and I said, who do you think is going to fund you? The teachers union? We are the people that have funded the Republican candidates.
That is a big question, of course, because you have a lot of the old establishment who are like sort of the money behind the Republican Party that have eschewed funding Donald Trump's campaign and others. And as I can see, a lot of those people have stepped in to fund Ron DeSantis's campaign. Do you think that Trump is a foregone conclusion, Ambassador?
I think right this second, if the primary were held today, he'd get the nomination. I don't know what will happen if Ron DeSantis continues to develop and get more traction, and if Trump happens to have some more stumbles. I don't know where that'll all go.
Do you think DeSantis is the strongest candidate to beat Trump?
Oh yeah, by a long shot.
Is,
I like
there,
other people. You know,
Mhm.
I like Glenn Youngkin, who started the parent rights and education movement, which is getting traction now. I think he would be a fine president. He's had a real job too, like running a company, which I happen to think is a great requirement for running anything.
Yeah, I agree. I'm tired of all these presidential candidates talking about employment and jobs and labor and have never created a job in their entire life. It's another reason why I could never get behind the Bernie Sanders love from a lot of people that I tend to run with the redneck crowd ambassador and populism, which is a fascinating phenomenon we're faced in. There's left-wing populism and right-wing populism, but there's a lot of similarities, right? There's a lot of the conspiracy crowd. It all runs together. It is fascinating, though, that they have upended the political spectrum here in the United States, and we have this situation where, when it comes to foreign policy, Ambassador, I don't know where you stand on that one. I know where the Bushes stood and sort of the neoconservative view of foreign policy. But when I was reading your talking points, you were talking about sort of, that we need a bipartisanship to come together to have a strong foreign policy. Would you say that Donald Trump's foreign policy was one of his strong points? Because I would say that as much as I disagreed with President Trump, the fact that he was more non-interventionist and that he really did kind of demonstrate peace through strength in a certain way, I thought that was actually one of his stronger points. Would you agree or disagree?
Well, I certainly agree with respect to China. He raised the curtain on China that everybody been hiding behind ever since they got into the WTO in 1998 or 99. We've had so many presidents appease China, and he spoke up, he and Lighthizer, and I think they did a fantastic service there. Now, I was not a fan of the Abraham Accords in upending 70 years of a bipartisan policy of a Palestinian state in a two-state Israel area, and I just thought that was a PR game of Jared Kushner.
It's fascinating. Boy, that's highly controversial. So, when it comes to the issue of moving the embassy to Jerusalem, was that related to the Abraham Accords, or was that something separate?
No, that was separate, and I think that's fine.
Mhm.
I mean, if you figure Jerusalem is the cultural hotbed of Israel, there's an argument to have the embassy there. If you figure Tel Aviv is the business hotbed of Israel, there's an argument to have it there. Our embassies in Rome combine both.
It's fascinating. I wonder if you could speak to that.
Well, when both the U.S. Embassy and the Embassy of the Holy See and the Food and Agriculture Organization all have ambassadors in Rome, and on the one hand, it's the cultural center, religious center, and there's a lot of those overtones, particularly with the Holy See mission. But then again, it's the business center or one of the business centers of Italy, along with Milano and Torino, and it's certainly the government center.
If you're just tuning in to the Wake Up America show, I'm Austin Peterson. I'm speaking to Ambassador Francis Rooney. He was the former ambassador to the Holy See, appointed by the George W. Bush administration. He was also a congressman from the state of Florida. Boy, Florida politics is quite fascinating, Ambassador. I wonder if you could talk to us a little bit about that. You have Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz and many others who loom large in the Republican Party down there in Florida. Of course, it's the home state of Donald Trump, as many others have observed that he really does dominate the party down there. Do you think somebody like yourself could get elected again if you ran again for that seat?
I'm not sure. My district is very populist, a lot of retired, super conservative, super pro-Trump people, and I broke with Trump on a few things, particularly in the foreign policy area. So I don't know, but Florida is a very interesting place. It was moving purple, hard purple, under the Obama years, and driven by the Hispanics up on I-4, mostly Puerto Rican, who are Democrats. But now we've had the benefit of a lot more Latin Americans from around South America, and particularly Venezuela and Peru, that have their countries have continued to deteriorate, and they're conservative. They're very conservative. They fled oppression and poverty, and they don't want it to happen here. They're just like a new set of Cubans, and it's really great. That's how Trump won Florida. There were over 300,000 more votes for Republicans in Dade County than there have ever been. And those are all the Venezuelans out in Doral.
Ambassador, one last question before we let you go here today. Today is known as Pride Month here in the United States, where the LGBTQI community sort of takes over the corporate world and puts rainbow flags on absolutely everything except for their products in the Middle East, of course. I wonder if, what your thoughts are on Pride Month as a conservative Catholic.
Well, I think I always thought Pride was taking pride in the Pledge of Allegiance and the American flag. I didn't know it was taking pride in other kinds of things. And I would rather return to pride in our citizenship, pride in our values, pride in our unique combination of religious freedom, speech freedom, and individual rights and liberties.
Ambassador Francis Rooney, anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners before we let you go?
No, not really, but thank you for having me on. We're all in a struggle for our country right now, and we need strong voices out there.
We certainly are, Ambassador, and we're glad to hear that you're out there voicing your First Amendment rights this morning. Thank you for sharing them this morning, and thank you for being so generous with your time today. We're grateful.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. What did you think of Ambassador Francis Rooney, his first time on the program? Did you like that? Send us a text, 573-319-1586. All right, well, when we get back, it's time for Camellia. Camellia Peterson is going to join us to talk about Donald Trump's loyalty test. And Kayleigh McEnany, his former press secretary who everybody thought she did a terrific job? Well, apparently she's milquetoast now and a tool of the globalists, the pawns. Wait a minute. Stop the music. Wait a minute. Austin, didn't you have some video clips that you wanted to play here real quick before you go and jump on to the next phrase here? Here's Brian Kilmeade, who is backing up Kayleigh McEnany from Donald Trump's attacks.
Say you make things up. They say he flies off the handle. For example, attacking Kayleigh McEnany is insane. She's one of the press secretaries ever. Dana Perino, as Ari Fleischer are watching too. Just saying, she was fantastic. But she's an analyst now. She doesn't work for any campaign.
Yeah, she's an analyst now. She doesn't work for any campaign. I got to say, I think Donald Trump's attacks on her was a little bit rude. Okay, all right, Austin, it's time for us to go to a commercial break. Let's do it. We'll speak to Camellia Peterson about the Trump loyalty factor when we get back on the Wake Up America show at wakeupamericashow.com.
Good morning to the Cantina crew. This is Elon Musk, the CEO of Twitter. And I just want to say thank you for watching the Wake Up America show. I've decided that Austin Peterson will be the new CEO of Twitter.com, effective immediately. First thing to do, though, is I've got to go and blast off into space.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun.
I think that at the heart of my philosophy is much more libertarianism than well, that's the fashionable word these days, I guess. A conservative is no longer just that. He's a libertarian and always has been.
Yet any time you and I question the schemes of the do-gooders, we're denounced as being against their humanitarian goals. They say we're always against things, we're never for anything.
What is fascism? Fascism is private ownership, private enterprise, but total government control and regulation.
Well, the trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth.
This is the issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves. The conservative, so-called, is the one that says less government, get off my back, get out of my pocket, and let me have more control of my own destiny.
Would happen if I had to pick up the phone, call 911 for one of my family members or one of my neighbors? What would I do if no one was on the other end to respond? What if there was no 911? So you can be a part of the solution.
Anybody can be a firefighter. Male, female, younger, older.
We have school teachers. We have leaders in business.
Is me, you, anyone that wants to be.
There is no typical firefighter.
Do you hate the deep state? Do you reject the Antichrist in all his ways? Do you believe that aliens controlled LBJ to assassinate John F. Kennedy? Did you know that the shot can put chemicals in you that will make you more sensitive to 5G? Do you love America? Do you want more freedom? Do you like smoking hot redheaded libertarians? Then the AP for Liberty shop is for you! Check out all the awesome new merch and have a happy new year! Fight the deep state, reject the Antichrist! Visit AP for Liberty shop and get your patriotic merchandise now, or the deep state wins!
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Where else can you get a program, talk show in the morning with such a handsome, attractive man? Well, there's probably lots of good-looking guys, even better-looking guys than shows this morning, but they're not like me, are they? Do they wear such cool shirts on Gay Pride Day? I'm just looking, I'm just trying to represent for, well, not my people, but my brother's people, my sister's people, my friend's people, and anybody who just identifies as gay. You know what? Since I'm not gay, today I'll just identify as one. Welcome to the Wake Up America show. Today is Gay Day. It's like May Day, except gay. My next guest joining me now is one of our favorite guests. She's totally not gay. Her name is Camellia Peterson. Although if she doesn't get a date or a man here soon, people are going to start to wonder. Camellia, how are you?
Good, thank you. That's a nice introduction. I was really conflicted as to what to go with the background this morning because there's just like so many options today.
You went with Old Man Yells at Cloud, and my guess is that it has something to do with Donald Trump because he's in the news because just 48 hours ago, I was on Instagram watching this guy on Timcast, Camellia, and he was talking about how DeSantis is disloyal to Trump. And I was like, Trump, they're just demanding loyalty to Donald Trump. But I'm like, Donald Trump hasn't been loyal to anyone. They're like, who has Donald Trump been disloyal to? And I'm like, well, his wives is a good one. But they all ignored that. And then not 48 hours later, what happened, Camellia?
Kaylee, I am always confused as to how to pronounce her last name. Is it McEnany? McEnany? I don't know. McEnany, I don't know. Mm-hmm. Anyway, she had, so she's I think a Fox News contributor, and she had come out and given some statistics from comparing polls from a while back to a little more current about Trump. And so he thought that she was misrepresenting the numbers and saying that he didn't have the lead that he does. And so he just went to town on her and said that she gave out the wrong poll numbers and called her Kaylee Milquetoast McEnany, which that's probably honestly the best part of the whole this whole post.
the thing about milquetoast that makes me mad is just that why the hell did they spell milquetoast with a QE? That makes no damn sense. Just spell it with a K.
Sure, it's probably like French or something, right?
I guess. Anyways, so Donald Trump demands loyalty because DeSantis betrayed him by running for president of the United States. And then Kayleigh McEnany, who's been loyal to him, I guess she cited a poll that he didn't like, and so now she's a tool of the globalists.
Right. And like person after person who other members of the press, have repeatedly said there was like nobody more loyal to Trump than her. And so this is like the epitome of what Trump does. You say one little thing that he doesn't like, and he'll throw you under the bus without even thinking twice.
But yeah, but loyalty, Camellia, loyalty. And it's just funny because, again, I was talking a little bit earlier about like the cult like behavior and things like that. Like, it's fine if you support Donald Trump or, I voted for him in the last election. But I guess we should be happy that there's going to be a primary in the Republican process because the Democrats, they don't look like they want to have a primary. I think they're not going to have a debate at all. So I guess we should be happy for the small things.
It is thank heaven for small mercies. I'm not sure they are mercies in our case. It's like I think it was Scott Lincicome that posted another one of Trump's Truth Social post about the trade deals and all this stuff, that he's saying that he did. And he was like, there's no amount of alcohol that's going to be enough for this election through 2024. That is true, though. And one of the things that Trump had said about Kayleigh was that his last parting shot was Fox News should only use real stars.
God, that is hilarious. If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, good morning. We're glad to have you here. Thanks for tuning in. Smash that like button if you're enjoying our commentary. And if you're a big Trump supporter, I saw our friend here over there was posting, Forrest Hoffman was posting Trump. We have Trump supporters here and they are welcome. Yeah. We also have Trump haters here and they are also welcome. Everybody is welcome to share their opinion on here on the Wake Up America show. But we do try and hold people accountable for their behaviors and for their words. And so, on the whole, like DeSantis being disloyal and things like that. I mean, it just was ironic. Ron DeSantis, when it comes to attacking Donald Trump, he's been kind of, for a long time, he held back. But they haven't really necessarily gone full bore yet. I mean, he's running for president, but Donald Trump is spending every penny he has attacking Ron DeSantis. DeSantis doesn't seem to be doing the same.
No, and I think that's smart. I mean, that's been his tactic all along because, really, Trump has always been this way, but now even more, it creates this contrast. And really now Trump is the old man, yelling at everything. And so that's one of the things, though, when they talked about that poll comparison, he was mad saying she represented those poll numbers, but those poll numbers in both cases were still showing Trump with a significant lead. But what it did show was that in the last month or so since DeSantis really started actively getting out there and really working the field, those numbers have shrunk. That lead has shrunk and not insignificantly. So, for however much you can trust polls. But yeah, I think that part of that is that, DeSantis is showing that, he sat back and he kind of let things go, for a long time, no response, just kind of not even acknowledging anything. But now that he's out there and he's really started to talk with people and to work at this, it's, you can tell.
What's interesting about DeSantis is that he really does kind of focus on policy in his discussions, and he's actually being criticized from many people who are saying that he's a little bit too wonkish in his speeches. That is something you and I appreciate, Camellia, but that's not what plays really well with most people. They want what Donald Trump has in terms of his personality. And let's be honest, Trump is hilarious and he owns the libs. And there's something satisfying on a guttural level when you well, I say guttural, but in the gutter level. But I mean, there's something satisfying about that on like the like in our base level. It really it
visceral,
tickles,
yeah,
visceral level. It tickles my lizard brain, if you will. And he does drive the left insane, and Ron DeSantis doesn't. And that's probably why he's leading in the polls.
Sure, I think so. And, here's the thing. we talk about polls all the time, and yes, there's probably some merit to some polls, but we've seen polls be wrong more often than not. And putting on my AFP hat for a minute, that's one of the reasons why Americans for Prosperity decided to get into the presidential primary, is because not only do we need a change, we can't afford to keep the current administration in office for another 4 years. But we just need a different direction in general, because it feels like we are just spinning our wheels and like we're going in circles all the time with the same, back and forth, and nothing is getting any better. It doesn't matter, and I'm not so sure if we put Trump back in office that anything's going to get better, because we're too busy spending all of our time owning the libs. But one of the things that we are doing is we don't even know who AFP will endorse in the presidential primary. But in prep for that, we're actually already out knocking doors and calling people in talking to people about what their views are, and in a way doing our own polling and having our own internal set of data, because you can't trust the polls that are coming out of the mainstream media. And I will say, just from some kind of preliminary numbers that we heard when we had our national conference here a week or two ago, basically Trump and any Republican candidate, whether it was DeSantis or anybody else, is kind of still a dead heat, even from what we're seeing so far.
It's interesting that the Trump situation is where he really does seem very isolated in a way, where he just kind of it's Trump world and it's no one else. It's going to be hard for him to build a coalition outside of Trump world, because they kind of go out of their way to alienate anybody who might even be an ally. It's like, if you're not on board 100%, then like you're an enemy. That's probably not a good strategy when it comes to winning a national election. At least it didn't work last time.
Right. Well, and the thing is that, I mean, you've got to be kind of crazy to want to go and actually serve in a Trump administration right now, after everything that we've seen with that. I mean, for heaven's sake, some of the more prominent voices that are out there in the Trump camp right now are people like Laura Loomer. I mean, come on, that's terrible. She's awful.
I have
She's
to
crazy.
say, I have to caveat right here. I have to be very careful with the Laura Loomer stuff, because I agree that Laura Loomer is absolutely bonkers, but for some reason, her and I are personal friends.
Okay, well, that aside.
Laura Loomer in person is not the person that she is online, and there's probably a lot of people don't know that. Maybe I'm breaking some news here or something like that, because who she is like in person is very reserved, very intelligent, very well spoken. I think she's smart and knows what people want, and that she gains fame by behaving the way that she behaves. She probably goes too far a lot of times, has gotten herself in too much trouble, but she's not stupid. She knows what she's doing.
Well, and I think that's part of what a lot of people who kind of take the track that she has, and kind of that outrage side of
yes,
of politics. Once you create that brand, it's really hard to go back.
Yes,
you kind of have to keep building that up and more and more. But I mean, when you talk about, DeSantis being more kind of the nerdy, wonky, that we sort of like, and Trump being, just the clickbait outrage, we see that to a certain extent too in the debt ceiling fight and kind of what just happened, because, I'm pretty convinced, I like a lot of the conservatives that are out there like, this is a terrible deal. We need to, and we all want all or nothing, but the more I'm watching the more I'm convinced that it's just so much politicking to get out there and rage against the debt ceiling deal. And that's why I've really been paying attention to Massey. It's like, he's like, my engineer problem solver side of me wants to do something different and to try to solve this and to vote for this. But my politician side tells me to vote no, because, that's the popular thing to do if you're on the right and you're conservative right now.
You know what's funny about this whole Kayleigh McEnany thing here is that, like, all of these people online are saying that the Kayleigh struck first, that Trump is just punching back. I'm seeing this tweet right now. Milquetoast struck first. Trump was punching back. Just announce you're endorsing DeSantis and leave it at that. The failed attacks on Trump aren't working. We have receipts. I have not seen any Kayleigh McEnany attacks on Donald Trump. Have you?
No, in fact, as far as I
Where are the
know, she likes DeSantis, but I think I don't know that I'd ever seen anything about her saying anything negative about Trump at all. I mean, she's always been pretty supportive as far as I know.
I guess I don't know. It's just like this guy said on Twitter just now, that we have receipts and stuff like that. So I've asked him for receipts, and you know what? If I'm wrong and it's there, then I'll admit it. Maybe she's in bed for DeSantis, but
Well, the thing is you can't say anything negative at all, even if it's factual, without that being seen as an attack or striking first. I mean, the war that goes on Twitter alone between the DeSantis War Room Twitter account and the Trump War Room Twitter account. I mean, like it's like better than any kind of soap opera because it's just, it's one thing after another. And there's just flat out lies, being made up in defense of, their candidates.
If the truth is anti-Trump, then maybe you need to re-question why, where you stand and why you stand and, what you stand for exactly. If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, good morning. I'm Austin Peterson. I'm speaking to Camellia Peterson, and she is joining us now. We're talking about the Trump versus DeSantis and the loyalty test to Donald Trump. Is there anything else catching your eye in the news this morning, Camellia?
Well, since this is Gay Day, I was cracking up at your intro. But one of the things, by the way, I don't know if you've seen this yet, that's been going on in Missouri, because when we talk about Pride Month and all of the stuff that is just, at some point, like, does it become so normal that we don't need a special month for it? You know what I'm saying? At what point do we not need to do that because it's just part of life? But I think one of the things that's happening on the right that I'm seeing is that in their justified opposition to some of the things that have been happening with the drag queen shows and targeting children with the transgender surgeries, things like that, is that they're doing what people do and they're swinging back too far in the other direction. And I am seeing people actively talking about like putting people back in the closet and laws to that effect. Like, we just don't need to do that. So in Springfield, Missouri, their Pride Festival is I think June 10th, so in a week or so. And there's been this ongoing debate because there have been some representatives in the area who have, because it includes some drag queen shows, performances, who have been asking the city to completely cancel the whole thing. And so there's been this whole back and forth, and I don't know. I mean, should the city be funding it? Absolutely not. I mean, that's not the role of government.
But if it's being funded by the city, I'm on the side of cancel it, not because I'm anti-LGBT, but because that's my tax dollars. And, if I want to support something gay, then I'll go buy a Bud Light.
Sure.
Camellia, one last thing before I let you go. I posted a poll yesterday between RFK and Trump. Who you got? And I don't see any evidence of spamming activity. With over 2,000 votes, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is winning hands down. It was pretty comfortable lead, actually, 56.2% to 43.8%. I think if it's between two Prison Planet candidates, that the most Prison Planet of the candidates is going to win.
I refused to vote in that poll, by the way.
Oh, come on.
Surprise,
come on.
surprise.
But RFK and Trump really do kind of they kind of dip out of the same pool, don't they? Except, Trump is really very pro-vaccine, of course.
Right. And I think that in both cases, their supporters choose the few things that they like about them and ignore all that other stuff because, whatever.
Camellia, it's been great having you back this week. We missed you after your vacation. You do look nice and pink-cheeked, and not just because I embarrass you on the show when you come on. Thank you very much for your time today. We're very grateful. You have a wonderful day and a weekend.
Thank you. By the way, I have to correct one thing. You said you have a gay dog.
Yes.
And I would just like to say that Calvin is probably not completely gay. He doesn't do it as much as he used to, but he does still try to hunt my leg from time to time. So maybe he's bi.
Okay, so there you go. But that still counts. The B and LGBT. Thank you very much, Camellia Peterson. We'll talk to you again next week. Have a good weekend. We'll be back. with more. James Van Der Beek of some really gay show, I guess. I don't know. It wasn't gay. It's just a girl show. But any girl show is also a gay show. James Van Der Beek is getting red-pilled. Wait until you see this video clip I play where he talks about the Democrats not having a primary. When we get back on the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
Donald Trump and I approve this message. Believe me, Austin Peterson is the best. He's got the greatest Wake Up America show I've ever seen. Whenever I tune in the mornings and watch the live stream, let me tell you, he has got the absolute best content. I love his guests. It's just a total blast to watch, and I highly endorse and recommend the Wake Up America show. It's terrific, believe me.
Step right up, ladies and gents, to learn about the coolest president yet. He's not just any old prez, he's Calvin Coolidge, and boy oh boy is he different from the rest. He was quiet as a mouse, but don't you underestimate his power. He knew how to handle money, and he didn't waste an hour. He cut taxes, lowered debt, and balanced the budget with ease. No wonder the Roaring Twenties brought such prosperity and peace. But don't take my word for it. Grab a copy of Calvin the Coolest President and see for yourself. It's a children's book that'll make you smile and help your little ones learn about wealth. You can find it on Amazon Kindle or get your hands on a paperback at apforlibertyshop.com. So come on down and get yourself a copy of the book that's making waves all around town. You won't regret it, so get ready to be floored because Calvin Coolidge, well, folks, he really scored.
I'm a public defender.
I am a public defender.
I'm proud to be a public defender.
80% of Americans accused of a crime will get appointed a public defender.
Everybody from a speeding ticket to capital murder.
For every dollar we spend on public defenders, we spend $3 on prosecutors.
Public defenders have to do pretty much everything on their own.
Social workers, counselors.
Investigating is another piece of it.
The average public defender holds 300 cases annually.
You never feel like there's enough time.
Public defenders have health issues all the time.
A lot of people give up and say, I can't do this work anymore.
Gideon's Promise trains, mentors, and supports public defenders.
There are a lot of people who say that they would not still be public defenders, but for Gideon's Promise.
It's fueled me to continue on in this fight.
Gideon's Promise has changed the face of public defense.
People see us as troublemakers.
Good trouble only.
We don't make it easy. It should not be easy to take away someone's liberty.
Ever hear the one about the frog? Put a frog in a pot of boiling water and it'll jump right out.
Here's my resume again.
But put a frog in a pot of cool water and slowly heat it up, and that frog will boil. It's a lie. But as a metaphor for us and all that we go through as veterans,
you have any real-world experience.
It's a story that rings true. We make excuses for how we feel. We push everything down. We tell ourselves the lie that it's easier to stay in that boiling water, to disconnect. And some days, maybe it is. But you've never been interested in easy. Make no mistake, reaching out is hard. Do it anyway. You're not alone. You've got this. You are not a frog.
Find resources at va.gov/reach.
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Have you enjoyed the show so far? Well, good. I'm glad. Well, you sound very enthusiastic for people who have only given us 7, 9 likes over on Rumble. What are you doing, Rumblers? I see you all over there. There's 22 people watching us. Why don't you hit that like button? Help us out. Make us feel all better. Blutreich over there says he's not entirely against people going back in the closet. I don't want them to be ashamed to be gay, but I also don't want them to rub it in my face. Succeed. And when they were in the closet, they weren't rubbing.
FBI, open up!
Yes, in my closet. They want to come check. You can rub me anytime. Rub that like button. How about that? Drop us a comment over there. If you're over on Rumble this morning, introduce yourselves. It's nice to have viewers, and maybe you're watching us on the app or something like that, and you've got a big screen TV hooked up in your home and you can't hit the like button. I understand it. I'm pretty sure you still can, though, if you pick up your remote and go over to the channel and click that like button. I know it seems like a big thing, big deal for you to do it, but it costs nothing other than a few seconds of your time, and it does help the show to grow. So if you like the Wake Up America show and you want to help us to continue to survive and thrive, make sure you click that like button. You can do it also over on YouTube. And I'm also excited to announce, maybe some of you heard yesterday, but the Wake Up America show has now been streaming not just on Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, and the Rumble, and all the other regular apps, but we're also streaming live now over on Apple, Fire TV, Roku, and I think Hulu as well, courtesy of the Spreely app. That's the Speak Freely app. So if you have Amazon, Fire TV, Hulu, or Roku, download that Speak Freely app. It's Spreely, S-P-R-E-E-L-Y, and you can watch us on your Apple TV or Roku or Fire TV or what have you. Really cool. And I spoke to the guy who is hooking us up with that connection, a gentleman by the name of Terry Littlepage, and he announced to me yesterday when I spoke to him on the phone that apparently the numbers of viewers is really good over there. Apparently we've got a much bigger audience even than what we have on our traditional apps. So Wake Up America show continue to grow and gain steam, and it's fantastic to see. You love to see it because we've been around since just September, and so far we're really doing well. So grateful to have all of your support. And thank you very much for checking us out over on any of our apps. Okay, so oh yeah, James Vanderbeek. So apparently it was not Seventh Heaven. That's what I was going to say. But in order for us to not sound like a moron, James Vanderbeek was on the show Dawson's Creek. Oh, they're coming after him now. Oh, geez. So now I'm seeing the headlines. How James Vanderbeek became Fox News's new hero. All right, so the Daily Beast is attacking him now because they played this clip over on Fox News where he's talking about the 2024 election. The guy's a Democrat. Listen to this.
By the people. It's a democracy by them. For who? Big banks, big business, big tech, big pharma, big government, big whatever. I mean,
like the big government there.
What the hell? How is this a democracy? And how is anybody in the DNC right today going to post about thanking our troops and thanking the families who have made the ultimate sacrifice to preserve our democracy and our way of freedom? Now listen, I am grateful for them, but any member of the DNC who's going to think about posting that today, stop, think, and do your fucking job before you start posting about how grateful you are. There are people out there who are willing to die to preserve democracy, because you are not preserving democracy right now. You're shoehorning your pick and forcing it on the rest of us.
Dang.
And don't tell me that the other candidates aren't serious, because one of them is polling at 7%. The other one is at 19%. That is a quarter of the vote who already thinks there's at the very least some debate about who ought to be president. If there's no debate, there's no democracy. No primary, no legitimate president. So thank you to all the troops. Thank you to the families who have made the ultimate sacrifice to preserve our way of life, to preserve our democracy. Let's all do our part. We need a debate. How do we have a government? How do we have a democracy if we're letting a small little back room of people make all the important decisions for us? That's not a democracy, and it doesn't work, because y'all have been wrong about a lot these last couple of years in that back room.
Yeah.
no debate, no democracy. And I could be wrong. That's the thing. I could be wrong about all this. I could be wrong about the guy being fit for the job. I could be wrong about the other people being right, being legitimate, being crazy. You know what would solve that? A debate.
Yes.
Have a debate. Happy Memorial Day.
Oh man, that is good stuff. James Vanderbeek, you know, Seventh Heaven star. What was it, a movie? Twilight? Yeah, he was like the vampire, wasn't he? I know a lot of the ladies out there who love it, and the gays who love that show are really mad at me right now. Okay, at 8:30, coming up in just a few minutes, I'm talking to a presidential candidate. Can you believe it? No, it's not RFK or Donald Trump Jr. Don't be disappointed. Mike Maat. He's got a fantastic resume. He's running for president of the United States. Let's hear from him. We'll have a debate. We'll have democracy. I know what you're saying. No. It's a democracy. It's a republic. It's a constitutional republic. Oh my God. Boo. Jesus, calm down. Tired of this shit. We'll be back with the debate on the Wake Up America show at wakeupamericashow.com.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
American conservatism is distinct, like America is distinct from the United Kingdom. American conservatism's roots comes out of the Wild West, out of pioneerism. The difference between American conservatives and European conservatives is that Americans are cowboys. We are that God, guns, gold, and girls. It's wild here, and we should stay that way. We shouldn't allow a European version of conservatism to come and infect us here. We like it wide open spaces here, you know, deep in the heart of Texas and all that.
Hey there, it's your favorite Vice President Joe Biden. I wanted to talk to you today about the Wake Up America show, the best source for all your political news and commentary. But before I get started, let me just make sure I have all my notes in order. Okay, where was I? All right, the Wake Up America show. It's a great way to stay informed and make your voice heard. Boy, what was I saying again? Oh, right. The Wake Up America show. It's important that we all stay engaged and knowledgeable about what's going on in our country and, the thing. But hold on, where was I going with all this? Oh, yeah. The Wake Up America show. It's a fantastic resource. And if you really want to make a difference, man, you can sign up to be a monthly donor at wakeupamericashow.com/support. Now, where was I? Oh, that's right, the Wake Up America show. So if you want to stay woke and support a great cause, head on over to wakeupamericashow.com/support and sign up to be a monthly donor today. And if you're feeling generous, you can even give a donation in my name. Thanks for listening, and keep on keeping on, America. Come on, man.
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. All right, well, I think my next interview is going to go a little long. So before I do, because I know we're probably going to end the show there, I want to make sure that I remind you to check out my friend John Burke's Shell Shock CBD product line that I highly endorse and recommend, because I was a huge skeptic of CBD products. You know me, I'm skeptical about everything. I'm skeptical about even the things that I believe on a single daily basis. But CBD, Delta 8, all of those things I was so skeptical about until I tried my friend John Burke's products. You probably heard my story before. I went to a Renaissance festival. They had Delta 8. I tried it. I didn't feel anything. It certainly didn't help any of my pain, which I have a lot of because you know me in martial arts. And I tried John's Shell Shock CBD products, Delta 8, all of a sudden, like night and day, the difference. If you have sleeping problems, or if you've got typical aches and pains like me, or in the 40 or and above crowd, I highly recommend and endorse Shell Shock CBD. Check them out at shellshockcbd.com. Use that code AP4Liberty, the number 4, AP4Liberty, to get 10% off. And remember, there's a total money-back guarantee. So if you're like, I'm skeptical of you, Austin, but I'm going to try it, and then it doesn't work for you, guess what? You'll get your money back. So there's no risk. Check them out at shellshockcbd.com. Use that code AP4Liberty. All right. Well, from one former presidential candidate to one current presidential candidate, my next guest joining us now live is running for president of the United States under the banner of the Libertarian Party. So if you're not down with RFK or Donald Trump Jr. or DJT or any of the other acronym names that are running for president of the United States, you do have an alternative on the ballot, but you've got to help him win the primary. He's got to win the votes. He's got to get the delegates, so maybe he'll convince you now to go and convince you to support him. He's running for president of the United States, Mike Termott, our very first presidential candidate that we have in this season. Good morning, Mike. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Austin. I love the name of your program, the Double Entendre, because I agree with you. America does need to wake up a little bit. I got to interrupt just 1 minute, though. Your awesome flow here. That's it was AP, the numeral 4. I mean, I'm totally checking out your product.
Yeah.
And I want that discount because I pulled a little muscle in my back yesterday. By the way, I'm proud of you for continuing to work out after 40. I can tell you that after 40, it does get a little bit harder. And the most important problem with getting over 40 and working out is not the workouts themselves. When something goes wrong, it's harder to recover. So that was the numeral 4 in the discount code, right?
AP4 Liberty there. If you use that, you'll get a 10% discount at shellshockcbd.com.
I'm all over it.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I may have to cut this short so I can go into your website and get my discount.
Yeah, check it out. Get that discount. Again, if it doesn't work for you, Mike, they'll give you your money back. But Mike, when I read your resume when I was approached by your handler last week, I was very impressed. You were a police officer. You don't find too many former police officers who are libertarians, but the ones who are...
Not that they'll admit it.
No, for sure. But I mean, not only were you a police officer, you also had a career in finance and economics. You worked at the White House Office of Management and Budget. I can't believe they let somebody like you in there. You taught
they shouldn't have let someone like me out. That's the big problem.
Right. You taught economics at 3 universities, and you also have a BS in aeronautical engineering and an MBA from Polytechnic Institute, Rensselaer. As well as MS and PhD degrees in economics from George Washington University.
You're going back a long ways here, Austin.
Yeah, well,
you're going back into the 13th century, I think, with some of that.
Well, Mike, I ran for president as a libertarian back in 2016, and I didn't even have a quarter of your resume. Mine was former producer at Fox Business Network, but I still got second place. Where do you think you're going to end up?
I'm going to end up in first place. I watched your campaign closely, Austin. I got to be honest. I was a bit of an Austin Peterson fan because you spoke very, very clearly about your principles. You were able to bring those principles to people in a way that made them realize that they touch, real problems they have in their lives. I respect that all day long. And to be honest, I think that's more important than resume and background. You're right. I do have resume and background. I think that will help me on the other side of the nomination. I think that Americans outside of the Libertarian Party appreciate a commitment to public service in the long term. You're right. I have 2 careers in public service. I think people appreciate expertise in public policy. And so on the other side of the nomination, I think that's going to help a lot.
Yeah, for sure, Mike. And when it comes to the Libertarian primary, it's all about delegates, right? It's not about the primaries themselves because the primaries are really just beauty contests.
That's right.
The Libertarian Party has a nomination convention, similar to how the main parties work. Although the primaries do have some binding authority, in the main parties, none in the Libertarian Party. It's all about the delegates. So, what's
That's
your plan?
exactly right. A completely
Yeah,
open convention.
yeah. So what's your plan to win?
The plan is to visit each of the party's state affiliate conventions, let people get to know me. My story is possibly slightly more complicated than some of the other candidates in the sense that I do have a background that needs to be communicated. I'm also running a campaign in the style that I believe is important for the other side of the nomination, which is to say very, very policy forward. We have a collection of the most transformational ideas. We call it the Gold New Deal because we're pushing for a new relationship between us and the government, especially the federal government, but also a different relationship between us and state governments. And so the Gold New Deal is something that requires a little bit of explanation sometimes. And the fact that we're running a very professional campaign. Not only do we make sure that everything that we do, from logistics to messaging, is completely professional, but we have a professional staff on board. We're going from a team of 5 to a team of probably 11 in a week or so. Very exciting time for the campaign. And that's going to put us not just months ahead, but probably a full year ahead of the other campaigns. And we believe that that's something that we've been lacking in the past, is being able to have a libertarian presidential campaign hit the ground running as soon as the nomination is secured.
One of the things that you're going to want to watch out for is shenanigans at the convention, Mike. I ran into quite a bit of that when I was there. So you're going to want to be really careful about how you build your alliances. That's for sure. But let's talk about the
Yeah,
issues that.
agreed.
Yeah,
Agreed.
let's talk about the issues that really matter to people, Mike, because I think that's really where the substance and the heart is. Why you're actually running for president of the United States.
Yeah.
Most people run for president of the United States because they seek power or wealth or fame or money or more likes on Facebook or to sell books or to get more podcast subscribers, what have you.
I've lived a whole bunch of decades without those things. I can live a few more decades without them.
So why seek the nomination of a third party? Why not run? I mean, with your background and your resume, I think probably people would take you seriously as a candidate in a major party. You'd probably be welcomed by Republicans.
That may well be true, or even by Democrats who are interested in criminal justice reform, because I spent an enormous amount of time talking about how we end the war on drugs, change our criminal justice system really fundamentally, and perhaps even more important, change the way that we manage police officers in order to change that culture. Having been a cop for 11 and a half years, I think there are few issues as important as that.
Expand on
Yeah.
that, Mike. Go off on a tangent there for us, will you? What do you think needs to be
Sure.
done?
Well, for police officers, the big picture, of course, and this is true for teachers also, speaking of other folks in the public sector who are controlled by unions, the big picture is we want that business to be like other businesses in the United States, more influenced and controlled by market forces. We want the best police officers to get paid more, the mediocre officers to get paid less, and the crappy ones to get fired, right? And to do that requires a couple of things. In the long run, it does mean a culture shift, and that's going to take a long time. But there are things that we could do in the immediate future that would really make a difference. And one of the things that I advocate for very, very strongly is my idea that we need to replace qualified immunity with a requirement for individual officers to carry their own liability insurance, more like you would expect a doctor, a surgeon to carry. And the reason that we think this is so important is twofold. Number one, yes, a union is going to protect officers from a lot of information making it out to either the public in general or even to the controlling authorities that have the responsibility for disciplining officers. And a third party, an insurance company, is not going to be stonewalled. It's not going to put up with the union saying, no, you can't have that type of information. A liability insurance carrier is going to say, we need the records on, Mike or any other officer from soup to nuts, right? From training to supervisory evaluations, cases he's been involved with. And that's going to make a real difference in terms of setting premiums. And that's where the rubber is going to meet the road. We need officers to feel the pinch of their premiums going up, either because of poor performance or particular screw ups. God forbid. We've all become intimately familiar with the horrific mistakes that police officers occasionally make because there's so much video ubiquitously available online. So we see the worst of the problems, right? We want bad officers to get priced out of the market. And so that's the other reason why liability insurance is so important, because unions would be able to impose some market discipline on the system.
If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, good morning. I'm your host, Austin Peterson. We're grateful to have you here watching and listening to the program. Make sure you click that like button and subscribe if you are watching us over on Rumble, YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, Spreely, Apple TV, Roku, Fire TV, thousands, tens of thousands of people watching us right now.
Holy cow, if people can't find you, Austin, they're not looking.
Speaking to Mike Maat, he is a Libertarian presidential candidate joining us right now talking about the issues. Today is the beginning of Pride Month, Mike, so I'd like to speak to some of the LGBT issues with you, if you don't mind.
Sure.
I'd like to get your thoughts on probably the biggest issue of our day. Is it the proper role of government to to expressly forbid the mutilation of the genitals of minors undergoing transition surgery? Your thoughts as a libertarian?
We as a society have come to the point where I think we all agree that communities have a right, individuals, people have a right to come together as communities and make certain rules by which they are going to live. I don't believe that's appropriate for the federal government or arguably even the state government, but communities have a right to set certain rules. As a police officer, you learn real quick, you're a libertarian, you hate government intervention, but you do come to learn that there are certain things the government can do in the public sector. And by the way, police officers can be contracted and hired in the private sector. I believe it would work just as well. But having said that, communities do have an interest in developing a criminal code and finding a way to hold people accountable and to preclude certain behaviors. And so, for example, we don't allow children to make up their minds about matters of sex. We believe very strongly that there is an age of consent, and beneath that, parents cannot consent on behalf of their children. Society has come to understand that there is a certain line beneath which we need to protect children. And I believe that this goes in the same category. If we're going to,
you will face resistance on that point of view with many in the Libertarian Party.
Well, I do understand that, but if we are going to stand up for there being an age of consent line, right, for matters of sex, this falls into that category. You can't have one and out the other. You got to be consistent. If you're going to say parents are not going to be allowed to consent to their children having sex, which I think is a good idea, that's a good rule to have, then you also have to be able to say parents cannot consent to their children having other matters of sex, even if that's surgical. And so I believe that is the only consistent approach.
What about the issue of sports, however? That's a different question there. We're not dealing with the mutilation question, we're just dealing with intersex competition. Do you think it's appropriate for states, and many states have proposed this, and I think Alabama actually just passed it. Do you think it's appropriate that states or communities outlaw intersex competitions?
I think that it's not the appropriate role of government to get involved. And it's not a matter of how I feel about what the rules should be. There's a difference. I may have very strong views on what the rules should be. As a matter of fact, having competed in athletics through college, it will not surprise you to know that I have very strong views in this area. Okay. When I was a Division III track competitor, I could outrun any woman in the world. And I was Division III. You get where I'm going here, right? I wasn't the fastest guy on my team in a Division III university, and there was nobody in the world that I couldn't outrun who is female. So you might hear in my non-answer, I have very strong views on this, but we need to get athletic competition out of the public sector. I believe that some of the worst decisions are being made by public sector organizations. I think that you'd get more rational decisions made by organizing bodies if they didn't have political effects, laid on them over the top. And I think you'd be more happy with the results.
If you're just tuning in to the Wake Up America show, I'm Austin Peterson. We're grateful to have you as a listener and a viewer. I'm speaking to Libertarian Party presidential candidate Mike Maat about the issues of the day that matter. Do you think, when you look at the Republican presidential primary, do you think that there's a difference between Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump? Do you have a preferred candidate in the Republican Party that you happen to like more or less than others?
That's a very interesting question. I suspect that by the time November of 2024 comes along, I will have developed sufficient disdain for whoever their nominee is that I'll prefer the other, right? No, they are their own respective problematic personalities. DeSantis, for all of his free market talk, doesn't actually walk the walk. He doesn't want school boards making their own decisions. And I'm not suggesting that I don't agree with some of his philosophical positions. As someone who was raised by a Lutheran and a Calvinist, I can tell you that my family's pretty conservative too, right? But the point is that you shouldn't be interested in your politicians' philosophical background and how conservative they are socially. It should be none of your business, because your lives should be none of their business. The fact that DeSantis is very, very socially conservative may make my family happy, but he's got no business telling the rest of the people in Florida how they should live their lives. And the fact that he seems to want to pursue that, pardon me, is I believe very, very problematic. Donald Trump has his own problems, right? I mean, he's no libertarian either. He doesn't believe in free trade, for example. This whole America First crap has got to go. It's very, very bad for us. The idea of, shilling for populism, I find worse than problematic. Now, yes, any candidate who's going to stand up with an anti-war position is going to be warm to my heart by comparison to the others. I think that is probably going to be one of the two big issues come general election time. The other one, of course, being the management of the economy, which is a whole bucket of various proposals and issues and effects that need to be teased out. I think that I will do quite well in those discussions, having been, as you pointed out, an economics professor. I worked in the banking industry. I did work as an economist for the White House. So I'm used to dealing with those positions, and I think that I can speak from a position of a little bit of authority and knowledge.
Which White House administration did you serve under?
I was a civil servant in the George Herbert Walker Bush administration. And then I went to work on the communications staff of his reelection campaign, which of course was an utter disaster. The Republicans had run their course after 12 years. It was time for a Democrat.
We have you to thank for the Clinton years, which were some of the more fiscally conservative years, actually.
Ironically, that did prove to be the case, particularly after he got shellacked in the midterm elections, right? That White House was nothing if not completely sensitive to political wins, and that turned out to be a good thing. Unfortunately, the George Herbert Walker Bush campaign was also subject to political wins and believed I believe incorrectly, but never mind all that. They believed strategically they were better off capitulating to democratic pressures and agreeing to tax more and spend more, notwithstanding the president's very famous line, "Read my lips, no new taxes." He went back on that. And as you might imagine, if you're a 28, 29-year-old young conservative economist, that takes the wind out of your sails. That undermines your faith in a lot of things. Not only your boss, but your whole party.
Mike, we've got like 9 more minutes left, and I want to make sure we get to some of the bigger issues. One last thing on like the big presidential question issue, and then I'd like to ask you a couple more things about the Libertarian Party.
Sure.
Was it appropriate for the government to help to speed the development of a vaccine whilst in the middle of a pandemic?
I don't believe so. And that's a tricky question because it depends on your starting point. If you were to start 10 years ago, that's an easier answer. No, the government should not be playing such a role. I appreciate the fact that you might believe that state governments, for example, might have a role in contracting the acquisition if a community, a state really felt like there is an emergency and the acquisition of the vaccines could only be accomplished at that large a level. I don't believe that's the case, by the way, but I'm sensitive to that argument. So going back 10 years, I think that you could correct course and make sure that the government were not involved in the vaccine development process. Now, having said that, if you only peel back to the moment that, we as a society realized that we had a bit of a virus on our hands, at that point, it was almost too late. The apparatus had been set up whereby which big pharma is so in bed with the government is so in bed with big pharma that I query whether that system could have worked without government intervention. And so I'm sensitive to the fact that the system was so screwed up by the time COVID-19 happens. I'm sensitive to the argument that people felt like they had to do what they had to do. But the real fundamental underlying
forgive me, Mike,
issue,
if I have
Austin,
to forgive me, Mike, if I have to interrupt you here in the next few minutes, just because I got like tens of millions of questions I could ask.
No,
but
go
I'm
ahead.
segue to a different subject here and ask you about your thoughts about reparations to blacks in this country. The idea that historical slavery and racism means that we should appropriate funds from one group of people in society and redistribute them to minority communities. Your thoughts on the push for reparations in this country?
I think it's a horrible idea. Not only is the idea itself horrible, but even the push for it, I find divisive and, well, it's a morning program. Let me say dumb. The idea, if we were living in an environment 100 years ago and you could say these individuals had their civil rights removed, they were wronged by this group of people, we're having a discussion, we're having an argument, right? I can see going to court and someone deciding, well, these people wronged these people. I'm sensitive to that possibility. 100 years later, when you're only arguing about groups of people based on race, no, I'm sorry, I'm not having it. And it's not because I'm trying to be selfish about this. I just don't think it's appropriate. There is justice, Austin, and there is social justice. And those are two very different things. There is no justice in taking money away from people just because they're a particular color.
I agree. Is it appropriate for state governments, like Governor Ron DeSantis, to interfere with the teaching of communist principles like critical race theory and others to students in our K through 12 education system?
It's appropriate for him to wish that were the case. It is not appropriate for him as governor to tell the school boards what to do.
But the law was passed by the legislature and signed by the governor. So it wasn't as if it was a unitarian position.
No, I agree. I mean, I would give the same lecture to the legislature. I appreciate where your heart's at. I don't like critical race theory or any other critical theory. We have plenty of critical theory in general in the law. We have critical sexist theory. I don't like any of it. And I don't think that any spawn of it should be taught to our children. But having said that, these are decisions that school boards need to make, not legislatures and governors.
Conservatives criticize libertarians like yourself who take that position, saying that people who want to force other people to live according to their own principles will always win over people who wish to be left alone. When we look at the art of practical politics, when you understand Sun Tzu and the art of war, or you understand any concept when it comes to tactics and battles, that seems to be the case. That people who wish to force other people to live according to their lifestyles will always win over people who wish to be left alone. So the question appears to be that we're faced with, Mike, is that do we accept the forced indoctrination of our children into communist principles, or do we accept that if we have a K through 12 school system, that the kids should sit down and learn about the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, the Founding Fathers, 1776, and taught to love their country instead of hate it? I know which side I would choose if I had to, gun to my head. As bad as it may sound, these are the decisions that people have to face in our society, Mike. So which side would you choose?
Well, I don't believe you set up the question perfectly correctly, but I do think you're onto something very important. Yes, we have to teach our children about democratic institutions. There's no question about that. Particularly the idea of the limited government and the fact that the Constitution is there to protect our individual values. The reason this government was founded, the reason people came to this continent, and the only good reason people ever did come to this continent and found this country is to protect individual values. That does have to be taught and communicated. But I do believe that that is imparting a set of values. In other words, I don't believe that the business of communicating all that is abdicating a lifestyle. I think that while you should pursue your own personal social values, your own personal lifestyle, you should live your life by your own standards. But having said that, that concept is a value, and that we need to impart that value as being the most American value to our children.
I was famously booed in 2016 by the Libertarian Party delegates at the convention when I was asked by presidential candidate now, Larry Sharp, not Larry Sharp, but what's his name from California, the host of a radio show who ran for governor of California, I can't remember. Larry Elder asked me.
Larry Elder. Close, right.
Yes, he asked if I should. If it should be legal for 5-year-olds for children to have if there should be laws that protect children against the illicit drug use and things like that. And I was booed famously for saying that there should be laws to protect children from illicit drug abuse. So I guess my question for you my last question is as President of the United States, do you support the sale of heroin to 5-year-olds?
I support the sale of heroin to any adult over the age of 18. And I do support the idea that doctors and parents need to be the ones to make all of their decisions for their children. We do draw the line on matters of sex, but I don't believe that we should be drawing the line on matters of real health care. And when we get into the drug sphere, there are medicines that I'm not qualified to discern one from another. So I guess I can't answer your question about heroin in particular, right?
Boo, boo.
Well, that's the truth, is that I can't write a piece of legislation that says these medicines, but not those. That would require me to have a lot of expertise in medicine that I don't have. So, Mike, I can't do it. It's easier to say, and this is an important distinction. It's not the same thing as saying no surgery without pathology. That's a rule I can write.
Mike Termott. He's running for president of the United States as a member of the Libertarian Party. We wish him well. He's got a very impressive resume. Make sure you check it out at his website, Mike Termott. You can see the spelling of his name right underneath his handsome smiling face right now. So write that down if you'd like to learn a little bit more about him. We like what we heard today. There was a lot of, I'm sensitive to these arguments. Maybe next time we'll pin him down a little bit harder on those, because that's my job, because I'm not running for president anymore. He is. I'm asking the questions here, and hopefully we'll get some more answers out of him next time we have him. Mike, we appreciate you very much. Anything else very briefly that you want to say? You got about 30 seconds before I let you go.
GoldNewDeal.org. I think you'll like the platform, and I believe that it's not just because it reflects well on me, but because I think it'll reflect well on the Libertarian Party and draw a heavy, hard distinction against the other parties.
Well, we've got a lot more things that we could have asked you and talked to you about, Mike. We'll have to have you back on again real soon. Thanks for reaching out to us today, and thanks for being generous with your time.
Thank you, Austin. Good to see you.
Yep, good luck in the primary. What did you think about Mike Termott? Send us a text, 573-319-1586. All right, it's running late, 9:01. I gotta go. I'm going fishing today. I'm gonna get on my big old galoshes, my wetsuit, if you will, right, and get out there and catch me some trout. That means that tomorrow, instead of doing the show, I'm gonna be standing up waist deep in beautiful, cold blue water down in Bennett Springs with my beautiful little nephew on my side, and my dad over there, and my pop. It's gonna be a good time, and I'm gonna be enjoying the beautiful sunshine and catching some fish. And I'm gonna bring them home. I'm gonna put them in my smoker, and I'm gonna eat them up and enjoy them. I hope you have an enjoyable weekend. Sorry I won't be here tomorrow, but you know what? Everybody gets a little bit of time off. I think you guys enjoyed it. Looks like you enjoyed the interview. Good. Well, if you like the interview and want to help support the show, make sure you visit ap4libertyshop.com. Get yourself an All Gun Laws Are an Infringement shirt, guaranteed to trigger any leftist or any Republican who says, I support the Second Amendment, but red flag laws. Get that shirt that says it all right there at ap4libertyshop.com. That's AP, the number 4, ap4libertyshop.com. And hey, I hear that some of you who are watching the show right now aren't subscribed to the channel. What are you, gay? Oh, well, it's Pride Month, so I guess we're all gay. We'll see you next week, gay boys, on Monday on the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
I like shooting things, but whenever I can't shoot something, I like to cut things. My life isn't all about shooting and stabbing and cutting, though. Sometimes I have to do actual work, but when I work, I still like to have fun. And there's nothing less fun than trying to cut with a crappy knife. Thankfully, from the ancient sect of Christian knights, who also loved cutting and stabbing, comes a new implement that has received my personal blessing, the Templar knife. Like the ancient sword of Excalibur, you don't choose a Templar knife, it chooses you. You just decide what kind you want on the website first, however, and then order it online, and then it chooses you. The Templar knife comes in a variety of shapes. As a man of culture and taste, I have decided I will never use a terrible knife again. And thanks to the inspiration provided by this excellent product, I have decided to launch a new crusade against anyone using less than superior knives. Join me, brothers and sisters, by visiting uppercuttactical.com/pages/Templar-knives. That's a lot of slashes. For that, you'll need a Templar knife. For 10% off, use code AP4Liberty and join me in a quest for glory, for liberty, for Christendom, for the Templar knife. Get yours today. Fire. Hello, this is Barack Obama, and let me tell you why Austin Peterson stinks, and you should never pay attention to anything that he has to say. First of all, he's a libertarian, and we all know libertarians are idiots. They don't realize how important government is to everything that we do. I recently became aware that Austin has opened up a libertarian shop at apforlibertyshop.com. Now, I'm asking you as a personal favor to me that you never ever visit apforlibertyshop.com. With all of the great Liberty merchandise there, the last thing that we need to do is to get people spreading this message around the country, because then they might start thinking that they don't need government. And that's the last thing that good Democrats like us want. So if you love democracy, like me, and hate freedom, then don't visit AP for Liberty Shop. Like I said, whatever you do, do not visit apforlibertyshop.com. I'm Barack Obama, and I approve this message.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move, so I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
I would remind you that extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice.
It is better to settle these matters in the courts than on the streets, and new laws are needed at every level. But law alone cannot make men see right.